All right, you know what time it is. Neil Ratner Rock Talk here with a story. October 13th, 1965. The Who went into the studio and recorded the Pete Townsend song, My Generation. Now, the tune has been recognized as one of the 500 greatest rock and roll songs of all time, as well as one of the 500 rock and roll songs that helped shape rock and roll. And today, I thought I would tell you a little bit about the song that you might not know. But as usual, a little background first. Yeah, okay. So, Townsend wrote the song while riding a train from London to Southampton on his 20th birthday in 1965. And he was inspired by a Mose Allison song called Young Man's Blues. And Pete said, without Mose, I wouldn't have written My Generation. Mose was actually a hero of my friend Edgar Winter as well. Edgar and I went to see Mose, and I got to meet Mose, and he was such a cool dude, man. And if you listen to Mose and you listen to Edgar, you'll see the similarities. And if you're not familiar with Mose Allison, by all means, go on YouTube and check out one of his tunes. Okay, so now Pete was very much of a mod, with the song being not only a nod to mod counterculture, expressing their feeling that older people just didn't get it, but the lyrics also encapsulated the angst of being a teenager. Now, according to Townsend, My Generation was very much about trying to find a place in society. I was very, very lost. The band was young then. It was believed that its career would be incredibly brief. How about that, right? Incredibly brief. And they're still out there playing. Okay. Now, the song, though, contains the famous line, I hope I die before I get old. Now, Pete was asked in 1993 if the line was still relevant. And he said, the line actually came from a time when I was living in a really wealthy district of London, just by accident. I didn't really understand quite where I was living at that time. And I was treated very strangely on the street in an imperious way by a lot of people. And it was that I didn't like. I didn't like being confronted with money in the class system and power. I didn't like being in a corner shop in Belgravia and some woman in a fur coat pushing me out of the way because she was richer. And I didn't know how to deal with that. I could have, I suppose, insisted on my rights and not written the song. But I was a tucked up little kid, so I wrote the song. And I'm glad you did, Pete, because it's a very cool song. Roger Daltrey famously stuttered during the song. And according to Daltrey, I have a stutter. I control it much better now, but not in those days. When we were in the studio doing My Generation, Kit Lambert and Chris Stamp, my old friend, were their managers, came up to me and said, stutter. I said, what? He said, stutter the words. It makes it sound like you're pilled stone, on speed. And I said, oh, like I am. And that's how it happened. It was always in there. It was always suggested with a fade, but the rest of it was improvised. The song also features one of the earliest bass solos in rock and roll, played, of course, by the fabulous bass player John Entwistle. And interestingly enough, he played it on his Fender Jazz bass rather than the Dan Electric bass that he wanted to use. Dan Electric bass back in the day had very thin strings, and they were not replaceable. And Entwistle kept breaking the strings and actually bought 3 Dan Electric bass guitars because he couldn't replace the strings. And after he had broken the strings on the 3 guitars, he said, screw it, gave up, used his Fender Jazz bass, but strung with nylon tape-wound strings. And of course, he had to simplify the solo a little bit, but it's still a great solo, and he was an amazing bass player. All right, now the song went through various stages as they tried to perfect it. It began as a slow song with a real blues feel, and at one point they even had hand claps, key changes, but the final product was at a much faster tempo, and that was at the suggestion again of their manager, Kit Lambert. All right. So My Generation was the highest charting song for The Who in the UK. And although it never did well as a single in the US, the tune continues to be a fan favorite. And I think it has as much relevance today probably as it had when Townsend wrote it back in the 60s. All right. So that's it. That's my story for today. We're in the middle of a Columbus Day weekend here in the States. So if you have a holiday weekend, enjoy it. The weather is pretty nice up here today. It's partly cloudy in the 50s. So if you're somewhere where you can get outside, be sure to get outside. And if it's fall and the leaves are changing, go and check out the colors. All right. Now, I hope you're listening to my podcasts. They're on Spotify. They're on the Woodstock Podcast Network, iHeart, I think, iTunes, Google Play. And I hope you've listened to the first two with my old friend Mario, the Big M Medious. On Wednesday, a third one will be coming out. And this one, again, is with a very interesting person. He's my friend and dentist, Dr. Bruce Milner. You say friend, dentist, okay, what's so interesting? What's so interesting is that Bruce, like me, is a musician, but more of a musician than I ever was, because Bruce was in a band called Every Mother's Son, which actually had a #1 hit song called Come On Down to My Bo Baby. And then Bruce made the transition to become a dentist, like I made the transition to become a doctor. So it's a real interesting one. It'll be up on all those outlets on Wednesday, and if you haven't heard the ones with Mario, make sure you listen to them as well. Also on the new one on Wednesday, I do a very interesting medical report on hearing, something we all should cherish because we love music so much. And as we get older, of course, it goes and there are problems. And I think you'll find the report to be interesting. All right. Also on Radio Woodstock today at 3 o'clock, got a good story about Daryl Hall, whose birthday happens to be, I think, today. And of course, he's got the club up here called Daryl's House. So if you want to hear some interesting stuff, 3 o'clock, Radio Woodstock, iHeartRadio. All right. That's it. I'm gone. I'm going to go out and take a little walk and enjoy the day. Hope you do too. Neil Ratner, Rock Doc. See you real soon. Bye.